Hey everyone, and welcome to Travel Through Stories. My name is Sean, and today I want to talk about why I think you should read Thomas Pynchon's 1973 novel, Gravity's Rainbow. Now, if you haven't already read Gravity's Rainbow, just hear me out. I'm really not that big of a fan of Thomas Pynchon. I've now read 4 of his books, and I haven't enjoyed a single one, really. I find his humor to be pretty grating, and I think it gets in the way of his really good ideas and his just spectacular sentence level writing. And my experience with Gravity's Rainbow really isn't any different than that. If I needed to sum up a review of Gravity's Rainbow as succinctly as possible, I would say I found Gravity's Rainbow generally tedious and occasionally astoundingly brilliant. And while I didn't enjoy this novel as much as I know so many other readers do, I still think that this is one of the most important and definitely one of the most prescient books of the 20th century. And those occasional moments of brilliance that I just mentioned burn so brightly that it is worth plodding through the countless pages of scatology in order to access those moments of brilliance. And yeah, I know that's kind of the point. Gravity's Rainbow is a massively ambitious and visionary project of teleology, polemology, cosmology, eschatology, and I think most importantly, and this is going to be my primary argument in this video, is that I think Gravity's Rainbow is really a work of theology. It's a work of theology just as Hieronymus Bosch's The Garden of Earthly Delights is a work of theology. This book highlights and marks a shift in theology that occurred in the West in the mid-20th century when the cross, a technological death machine, was replaced with the bomb, another technological death machine. To use Andri Snær Magnusson's juxtaposition in his book On Time and Water, Christ has been replaced by J. Robert Oppenheimer. For Pynchon, though, Christ isn't replaced by Oppenheimer, but by an anonymous, bureaucratic, corporate engine of empire and of war. Gravity's Rainbow, I think, is a book about worship. It's a book about God. It's a book about metaphysical realities and omnipotent systems, and seemingly divine powers that exist above and beyond the self. These new realities to which each of us are forced to pray as they, as Pynchon calls them, dictate and control every aspect of modern life. The opening lines, in fact, place Gravity's Rainbow in this line of theological works, as what appears to be an astrological anomaly suddenly appears in the sky, demanding to be read and understood. What does this new astrological sign mean? Should I wish upon this new shooting star? Is it actually anomalous, or is it just newly ordinary? A screaming comes across the sky. It has happened before, but there is nothing to compare it to now. Well, just like in April of 1066, when Halley's Comet scarred the sky over England and was understood to be a sign of the impending apocalypse and the impending invasions from both Norway and Normandy, this screaming rocket also marks an unalterable shift in mankind's relationship with the world, with the sky, with the heavens, and with each other. The sign signifies a shift in the fate's promise. There is a new God. Nothing else matters anymore. The only thing that matters is the war. If you ask anything unrelated, you'll just be met with the constant refrain, "Don't you know there's a war on, moron?" And the only thing more terrifying than this seemingly anomalous astrological sign is the slow realization that it's not anomalous at all. It's become ordinary. If you're lucky, you'll turn on the news every day and you'll witness the screaming. And if you're not lucky, you'll look out your window and witness that screaming. War becomes God in Gravity's Rainbow, and war has existed forever. Just go read Cormac McCarthy's Blood Meridian. But war in Gravity's Rainbow, I think, is different. It's no longer the natural byproduct of human nature as it is in Blood Meridian, but the product of something even more powerful, the product of business. The logical result of a military-industrial complex that worships profit above all else. It has happened before, but not like this. And this is why I think that Gravity's Rainbow is a work of theology, whereas a work like Blood Meridian, I don't think is. Gravity's Rainbow isn't about the uncompromising inevitability of war, but the system's desire for war. It's not natural. It's a new system, a new technology that was manufactured by human hands. And so we really have this paradox at the heart of the system. The system comes to exist beyond the human, beyond the individual. And so no individual person can be held responsible for creating it. But at the same time, because every part of that system is human and every human is incorporated into it in one way or another, whether they like it or not, the system reflects our most base desires and forces us to submit to it. And thus, the system chases war. War is the most profitable activity out there, and, well, who doesn't want a little bit of profit? Don't forget the real business of the war is buying and selling. The murdering and the violence are self-policing and can be entrusted to non-professionals. The mass nature of wartime death is useful in many ways. It serves as spectacle, as diversion from the real movements of the war. It provides raw materials to be recorded into history so that children may be taught history as sequences of violence, battle after battle, and be more prepared for the adult world. Best of all, mass death's a stimulus to just ordinary folks, little fellows, to try and grab a piece of that pie while they're still here to gobble it up. The true war is a celebration of markets, organic markets, carefully styled black by the professionals, spring up everywhere. Now, this rocket that comes screaming across the sky in the opening lines is both specific and general, singular and plural. Specifically, it's the V2 rocket developed by the Nazis, I think in 1944. And generally, it's a metonymy for modern total warfare, the kind of warfare that produces in its civilian populace a kind of paranoid anxiety as they are ever bracing for impact, which will be followed by the screaming, as they know that everything that they know and love can be eviscerated in a split second without warning, and there is nothing they can do about it. No one can do anything about it. The individual has no power here. Once the system gets going, once its various uncommunicating parts coalesce and assume power, the system is self-propelling. It doesn't require consent or really even conscious action. The confused, atomized, disembodied bureaucracy is the real power here, as no one can fully comprehend the entire system, and therefore no one can try to stop it. Yet the continuity, flesh to kindred metals, home to hedgeless sea, has persisted. It is not death that separates these incarnations, but paper specialties, paper routines. The war, the empire, will expedite such barriers between our lives. The war needs to divide this way and to subdivide, though its propaganda will always stress unity, alliance, pulling together. The war does not appear to want a folk consciousness, not even of the sort Germans have engineered, ein Volk, ein Führer. It wants a machine of many separate parts, not oneness, but a complexity. Yet who can presume to say what the war wants? So vast and aloof is it, so absentee. Perhaps the war isn't even an awareness, not a life at all, really. There may only be some cruel, accidental resemblance to life. In fact, the most effective part of the system for Pynchon is that it has become completely disembodied. There is no general leading the charge, but a shadowy corporate bureaucracy, a vague they, a system. Entirely singular in its unified goal, but entirely plural in its component parts, each of which is barely even aware of the others. It's completely all-encompassing, and it even goes across class lines. No one could really claim credit 100% for any idea. It was a corporate intelligence at work. Specialization hardly mattered, class lines even less. The social spectrum ran from von Braun, the Prussian aristocrat, down to the likes of Perkler, who would eat an apple in the street. Yet they were all equally at the rocket's mercy. Not only danger from explosions or falling hardware, but also its dumbness, its dead weight, its obstinate and palpable mystery. This all-powerful system for Pynchon is the result of the unification of business, of capital, of government, and of technology. There is no ideology outside of that unification. In fact, this isn't political at all. Instead, it's about control. It's about power. It's about subservience to a new divine technology, a technology that will enforce itself upon you whether you like it or not, altering every aspect of your perceived reality. It means this war was never political at all. The politics was all theater, all just to keep the people distracted. Secretly, it was being dictated instead by the needs of technology, by a conspiracy between human beings and techniques, by something that needed the energy burst of war crying, "Money be damned, the very life of insert name of nation is at stake." But meaning, more likely, dawn is nearly here. I need my knight's blood, my funding, ah, more. The real crises were crises of allocation and priority. Not among firms, it was only staged to look that way, but among the different technologies, plastics, electronics, aircrafts, and their needs, which are understood only by the ruling elite. Yes, but technology only responds. How often this argument has been iterated, dogged, and humorless as a Gaussian reduction among the younger Schwartz commando especially. All very well to talk about having a monster by the tail, but do you think we'd have had the rocket if some specific somebody with a name and a penis hadn't wanted to chuck a ton of Amatol 300 miles and blow up a block full of civilians? Go ahead, capitalize the T on technology, deify it if it'll make you feel less responsible, but it puts you in with the neutered, brother, in with the eunuchs, keeping the harem of our stolen earth for the numb and joyless pardons of human sultans, human elite with no right at all to be where they are. We have to look for power sources here, and distribution networks we were never taught, roots of power our teachers never imagined or were encouraged to avoid. We have to find meters whose scales are unknown in the world, draw our own schematics, getting feedback, making connections, reducing the error, trying to learn the real function, zeroing in on what incalculable plot. Up here on the surface, coal tars, hydrogenation, synthesis were always phony, dummy functions to hide the real, the planetary mission, yes, perhaps centuries in the unrolling, this ruinous plant, waiting for its Kabbalists and new alchemists to discover the key, teach the mysteries to others. So Pynchon is interested in these vast and omnipotent systems that dictate life itself, but he's also really interested in the phenomenological experience of living unknowingly or knowingly within these systems. He's interested in the bodily response, hence the scatology and the obscene debasement on which Pynchon spends many, many pages. And so we follow the zany and crude escapades of a wacky and whimsical cast of characters, as they, well, primarily sing songs and have sex. The characters in all of these different fractured vignettes talk over each other, completely, seemingly unaware of each other's existence. And the book invites us to construct a coherent system in which they are logically connected, forcing us to unite each individual, each divided consciousness, and connect each of their raunchy acts into some form of logic, which really only reminds us of our sort of innate desire for connectivity, both personally and also formally, as this is a narrative, kind of. And as serious as this book is, as it attempts to propose a theory for understanding these massive systems that came to be in the mid-20th century and under which we still live, much of what our characters do is just a complete farce, an absurd adventure, an obscene, orgiastic carnival filled to bursting with excretions and ejaculations. Again, see Hieronymus Bosch for another artist in a different time and place attempting to do something similar. For our characters, most prominently our sort of central character, Tyrone Slothrop, our ill-equipped comic hero, our Galahad pursuing the Grail, our Rocket Man, as he is called. The only thing that these vast and incomprehensible systems really beget for him is sloth, or entropy. The entropic system manifests most emphatically in psychological entropy, leading Slothrop to follow society's worship of the phallic bomb, the phallic rocket, to worship his own. You get the point. The body reflects the body politic, and vice versa. Another way to describe Gravity's Rainbow, I think, is that it is a work of apocalyptic realism, which of course isn't unrelated to being a work of theology. Reading Gravity's Rainbow is like reading an updated version of the Book of Revelation. This is what the apocalypse looks like and sounds like. There are no trumpets heralding the apocalypse. Here, instead, you have the rocket's impact and the subsequent screaming of that rocket. And I guess the screaming of the victims, if there are any left. The apocalypse depicted in Gravity's Rainbow is one in which paranoia is the primary mental state, where confusion, abstraction, and bureaucracy are wielded as weapons against the civilian populace. And where, in the end, that of course it'll end for you all in blood, in shock, without dignity. But there's meanwhile this trip to be on. This paranoia is completely warranted, as the conspiracy of the system is real, but you can't do anything about it. And so that creates this helpless malaise of powerlessness again over all of our characters. And this fluctuating between understanding this grand conspiracy and wanting to push back against this system, and on the other hand, this confusion and this inability to even comprehend what you're looking at, and therefore you don't even know where to begin pushing. That is what creates entropy. And the novel's form does the exact same thing. It attempts to be this all-encompassing encyclopedic narrative, knowing full well that that is definitionally impossible. The novel eludes narrative coherence because coherence, and thus predictability, is, well, simply a construct, a lie sold to you by the system itself. In the end, we know that we can't trust the system, and we can't escape it either. They have lied to us. They can't keep us from dying, so they lie to us about death. A cooperative structure of lies. What have they ever given us in return for the trust, the love? They actually say love. We're supposed to owe them? Can they keep us from even catching cold, from lice, from being alone, from anything? Before the rocket, we went on believing because we wanted to. But the rocket can penetrate from the sky at any given point. Nowhere is safe. We can't believe them anymore. Not if we are still sane and love the truth. By the end of this book, everything fragments and disintegrates into a confused, indefinable monster puzzle of abstraction. There is no answer. There is no resolution, either in terms of the plot or in terms of the ideas. The paranoid quest to discover how everything is connected in this large, labyrinthine conspiracy dissipates, as no one is able to even comprehend the system before it's too late. Slothrop has no power, no autonomy, no real self. Everything disintegrates, and the V2 rocket that causes this, as we know, living over 50 years after the publication of Gravity's Rainbow, is just the beginning. It's just the beginning of this new war technology. The new god has only grown in power, and its technology has continued to develop. The V2 rocket is nothing compared to the unmanned drones and bombs that the system has access to now, which really only brings the reader right back to the beginning of the novel. It has happened before, but there is nothing to compare it to now. For how much I disliked so much of this book and found its humor really grating, and its spiraling series of barely connected vignettes pretty tiresome, its central thesis and the form in which it pursues that thesis, even if I don't like it, is as relevant now as I'm recording this in 2025 as it was when Pynchon was writing it during the Vietnam War and during the Cold War. And I'm really glad that I read it, and I strongly encourage you to read this book. I really think it has as much to say about the 21st century as it did about the 20th century. As bombs rain down over Gaza and Ukraine and Iran and Israel and as World War III is continually one small step away from cresting that horizon and charging inevitably towards us as our new gods, the capitalistic systems of empire and of war demand to be worshipped and demand to be fed your blood and your children's blood. Thomas Pynchon does not offer us solace, but he does offer us just one piece of advice if you need a little bit of comfort before the bomb hits. Touch the person next to you. Thanks for watching.